You mentioned just before Nazis in Australia. That was really incredibly shocking to me when I was watching the documentary because the thinking always is, especially in pop culture, oh, the Nazis fled to Argentina, or you think of movies like The Boys in Brazil, like what things like that. You don't think, maybe in Darling Harbour or in Footscray or something like that, like something so someone could be there. Um, how much of a shock was it to you? And also, do you know whether this was something that was um, specific to Australia? Do you know if other allied countries also had this kind of problem as well?
Yes, yes. Other Allied countries also had Nazis in their midst. Other Allied countries also employed Nazis as Cold War spies. I think there was what's slightly different about the Australian experience is the number of war criminals who came here, because essentially there was a mass migration of Baltic refugees, people who were not prepared to live under Soviet rule for a range of reasons. And one of those reasons for some of those Baltic individuals was because, well, they'd been allied with the Nazis, killing people, and the Soviets wouldn't give them much of a pleasant homecoming. The scale of collaboration in the Baltic countries was massive. The scale, it seems like putting it into percentages seems demeaning in a way, but the number of Jews who died in Lithuania, for instance, was the highest of any community in Europe, which is really saying something. We're talking about 96%. Imagine if 96% of Australians, I don't know what would that be, 22 million people, were
Mm.
wiped out basically like that. And it happened, sure, the Nazi Germany led it, but it was only possible because of the wide scale local collaboration. So, one, we're talking about the scale of the community who came out, the type of community that came out. And then, of course, we have this unique situation that more Holocaust survivors came to Australia per capita than any other country outside of
Mm.
Israel.
Yeah.
So, this led to a situation where literally we would have, there are multiple examples of Holocaust survivors who saw the killers of their families on the street, who saw SS guards over their garden fences, who saw Nazis from the camps they were interned in on the buses. So, what do you do when you're confronted with such a scenario? What do you do when you go to a government and the government does nothing? What do you do when the government is actually protecting Nazis, not just doing nothing? Now, I met Holocaust survivors who to this day say, I saw this Nazi and I should have killed him. But killing someone's a big deal, and they were just not killers. They couldn't do it. You know, as a teenager growing up in London, there was a war crimes investigation in the 1980s. And I wrote my first probably creative work I wrote was a fictionalized story of some teenage Jewish guy who goes out and kills a Nazi. But I put that down on paper. I couldn't actually go out and do it, even if I felt the Nazi deserved to be knocked off. So what do you do? And then there's someone like Boris. The difference is he's a Nazi killer. He was a partisan. I've seen his Soviet records, which list the battles he was in, the number of Nazis he killed. He speaks openly about it himself. So then you're getting into different territory. You know the government's doing nothing about it. Imagine the trauma and despair. We're talking about this in 2023.
Mm.
These were incidents that were happening when the events of World War II were fresh and at the forefront of people's minds. What do you do? And you got someone like Boris, who you go to, who you turn to, and ultimately he may have done whatever he did.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.